Hi everyone, I am Sneha, co-founder and CEO DevCompass, and I am super thrilled to be back, and I hope you guys are having as much fun learning this as much as I am having recording these videos and creating all those walkthroughs. So let's get started. The last two videos established why you would go multi-agent and the most common way it breaks. This video is about the mechanism, specifically how a coordinator agent actually spawns a sub-agent and gets work back from it. In Claude's SDK, this is done through the task tool. Understanding how it works is what allows you to write coordinator prompts and sub-agent tasks that are reliable, and this video, the task tool, is all about that. So let's see what's in it for us. So let me first walk you through what the task tool does at the API level, because understanding this is what prevents a whole category of coordinator design mistakes. So let's look at the flow on the screen. The coordinator is running. It's Claude in an agent loop. It receives a complex user query as usual. It decides it needs to delegate work, so it calls the task tool. That's tool call like any other step. Stop reason, tool use, just like we covered in previous stages. But what happens when the task tool runs is different from what happens when lookup order runs. So when the task tool runs, your code spins up a completely new agent loop, a new Claude instance, a new context window, empty, starting fresh. Your code sends the sub-agent's task prompt to this new instance, along with whatever information the coordinator chose to pass. The sub-agent runs, it may call its own tools, have its own loop iterations, retrieve data. When it's done, it returns its output. That output comes back to your code as the task tool's result. Your code appends it to the coordinator's conversation history as a tool result, exactly like any other tool would have done it. Now, the coordinator sees the sub-agent's output as a message in its own context, and it can use that information to decide what to do next. The coordinator never really saw inside the sub-agent's loop at all. It never saw the sub-agent's tool calls or intermediate results. It only sees the final output the sub-agent returned. This is why the output format matters so much. It's the only communication channel between the sub-agent and the coordinator. So now let's look at the code pattern. It's a pseudocode card on the screen. This is the coordinator calling the task in rough pseudocode. So the coordinator calls task with two arguments. First, the task description. This is the full instruction the sub-agent will receive. It should be complete. The sub-agent has no access to the coordinator's context, so everything the sub-agent needs to do its job must be in this description. Second, context, any information from the coordinator's context that the sub-agent needs. The customer ID, the query, whatever the sub-agent must have. Now look at the annotation of the task description argument. Complete. Sub-agent has no other context. That's a critical property. The sub-agent starts with a blank context and receives only what you explicitly pass. If the customer ID isn't in the context argument, the sub-agent doesn't have it. If the specific question isn't in the task description, the sub-agent doesn't know what to look for. The result comes back as a string, which is the sub-agent's output. And then look at what the coordinator does with it. It parses the result. Why? Because we're expecting a structured object. The JSON format we specified in the task description. If the subagent followed the format, this parse succeeds and the coordinator has a clean structured result it can work with. If the subagent didn't follow the format, if it returned plain text instead of JSON, the parse fails and the coordinator needs to handle the error. The parse step is where the output format specification from video 2 becomes a mechanical requirement, not just a good practice. Thus, the coordinator is going to try to use the subagent's output programmatically. The format must be what was actually specified, and that's all how it really works. Now, let me show you the coordinator's full picture, what it holds, what it delegates, why it works the way it works. Look at the diagram. The coordinator sits in the middle. It has three things: the original user query, the customer ID, and as the session progresses, the output that it receives from the subagent. That's it. The coordinator doesn't do the detailed work. It doesn't call get customer directly. It doesn't call lookup order directly. Its job is to understand the full request, break it into pieces, delegate each piece to the right subagent, collect the results, and then synthesize a coherent response. On the left is an account lookup subagent. The coordinator spawns it with a task that includes the customer ID. The subagent calls get customer. It returns a structured result: name, status, customer ID confirmed. The coordinator receives this as a tool result. On the right is the order lookup subagent, which is spawned in parallel with the account subagent. Both are running at the same time. The coordinator passes the customer ID and the query. The subagent calls lookup order, possibly multiple times. It returns a structured list of orders with IDs, statuses, and dates. The coordinator now has both results in its context. It synthesizes, it writes a response that addresses the customer's original query using the verified account information and the order details. At no point did the coordinator do any of the detailed lookups itself. It orchestrated. The subagents executed. This separation of concerns, coordinator orchestrates, subagents execute, is the fundamental pattern of every multi-agent system that you're going to build. So this is how everything works here. Now, one thing that trips up developer writing coordinator prompts for the first time is, look at both the approaches on the screen. One for a coordinator, one accidentally written as if the coordinator is a subagent. So left side is the wrong approach. The coordinator prompt describes the coordinator as if it should do the work itself. You are a customer support agent. When asked about orders, look up the customer record and find their orders. This is a single agent prompt. A coordinator given this prompt will try to call get customer and look up order directly, even if those tools aren't available to it, or even if they're supposed to be the subagent's responsibility. Whereas the correct approach is, you are a coordinator, your job is to understand what information is needed, delegate information gathering to the appropriate subagents using the task tool, and synthesize the results into a coherent response. Do not perform lookup yourself. 3 sentences, each one doing specific work. First, your role is coordination. Second, delegation via task is your mechanism. Third, explicit prohibition on doing lookups directly. That third sentence really matters. Without it, a coordinator with access to both the task tool and the lookup tools might sometimes call the lookup tools directly, especially when the query seems super simple and spawning a sub-agent feels unnecessary. So explicit prohibition removes that ambiguity. The coordinator always delegates consistent, predictable behavior. So in this video, we talked about how the task tool spawns a new Claude instance with a new isolated context. So all of them do not have the context like the coordinator will not have the context of the subagent won't have the context of the coordinator. The coordinator is supposed to orchestrate, subagents will execute, so we have to keep the rules separate. And please pass complete context to subagents because they have no other information access. So now you understand the mechanism. Subagents run in isolation, it returns output to coordinator. The next video is going to ask a higher level question. When should the coordinator know all the subagents tasks up front, and when should it figure out as it goes? That's the difference between prompt chaining and dynamic decomposition. Tough words, duh. But for us, it's gonna be simple. So I will see you in the next video.